Welcome to FCNYC. My name is Ben Chan. I'm here with Dominic Mauro. We are both caught up in the midst of Lynn's sanity.
Go Knicks!
Jeremy Lin, New York City Knicks, 6 wins in a row. Let's talk about some other guys who are trying to get on a winning streak. Last UFC card, UFC 143, which had some interesting and some controversial results. Let's start with Renan Morales' coming out party against Scott Jorgensen.
Yeah, this was a really interesting fight. Jorgensen was in the middle of winning. He won 7 out of his last 8 fights. He had, just fought for the title. That was his only loss in his last 8 fights. He had a really straightforward game plan. Get the striker to the ground and just pound him in the face. And Renan Barão was masterful in controlling the distance. Used his jab, used his footwork, picked Jorgensen apart with leg kicks, and just nullified Jorgensen's game plan. I mean, Jorgensen never got anything going. This fight wasn't even close. And for Barão, who's not fought a lot in the UFC, I mean, he's had a couple of fights now, but to prove that he belongs in the top tier of the 135-pound weight class, that's just huge for him. I mean, the title's kind of tied up right now. Uriah Faber, Dominic Cruz doing the coaching the Ultimate Fighter thing. They'll have a title fight, whatever. But after the whole TV show's done, I think Renan Barão, he's got to be on the short list of guys who are going to fight for that title, because the beating he put on Jorgensen for 15 minutes. There's not an awful lot of guys that it makes sense for him to fight without fighting the champion. I mean, that he's going places. He's the real deal.
Okay, and then in the next fight, we have 2 guys that probably won't be fighting for a title anytime soon. We had a Josh Koscheck versus Josh Koscheck 2.0, Mike Pierce.
Yeah, this fight, I mean, the crowd booed relentlessly. It was competitive in that both of these guys sucked. Josh Koscheck, he's been beaten down badly by Georges St-Pierre twice now. He's probably, gatekeeper status for the rest of his career. He looked, half-assed against Mike Pierce. I mean, from the start of the hype video, the trash talking they were doing before the match to, during the fight, Josh Koscheck didn't bring a lot to the table. I mean, it was the same, 1-2 with this sloppy jab and this haymaker right that just never connected, never came close. I mean, he was begging Mike Pierce to walk into it all night, and Mike Pierce had enough sense not to. And Mike Pierce, didn't have much of a game plan. I mean, I don't know what Mike Pierce was going for, but just a boring fight. They, spent most of their time clinched up against the cage. Nobody throwing any punches. Nobody throwing any knees. A couple of takedowns. Nothing happened on the ground. Either guy could have won this fight. But just why? Who cares? Josh Koscheck does his job as a gatekeeper. Mike Pierce, you got to spend more time down at the lower ranks of the division. And Koscheck will spend more time not fighting for the title.
And then next up, we had a fight that hopefully woke people up. It was a very scintillating heavyweight matchup between Roy Nelson and Fabricio Werdum.
Yeah, no, this was tough to watch at times. I mean, before the fight, I said that Roy Nelson, would have the striking advantage over Fabricio Werdum, and Werdum would want the fight to go to the ground, and we'd see a really great grappling match. That was not the case. Fabricio Werdum beat the living daylights out of Roy Nelson for 15 minutes. Punches, elbows, knees, kicks, everything in the Muay Thai arsenal. Roy Nelson ate it. I mean, Roy Nelson, his face looked like hamburger afterwards. He had this huge, 4-inch long gash on his forehead afterwards. I mean, Nelson got beat every way to Sunday. It was terrible. You got to give Roy Nelson props for his chin, for his heart. I mean, he never stopped throwing punches that were nowhere near close to connecting. But, he's got a great chin. He never got knocked out. He was hurt a few times. But for a guy who probably belongs at 205 or maybe even 185, Roy Nelson can take a punch from a heavyweight. And for Fabricio Werdum, you got to wonder where this striking was against Alistair Overeem. I mean, sure, Overeem's a lot more intimidating a striker than Roy Nelson, just a little bit. But, man, when he sits down on his punches, he really hits hard. Really accurate, really crisp punches. I mean, what was this flopping game against Overeem? Where was this? Really, he looked fantastic. I can't wait to see him fight again at heavyweight. If this is the way he's going to fight from now on, none of this flopping over and pleading with Overeem to get down on the ground with him, I'd love to see Fabricio Werdum fight again.
And then in the main event, the most controversial bout of the night, we had Carlos Condit defeating Nick Diaz.
Yeah, I thought this fight wasn't even close. I mean, this decision turned out to be very controversial. Apparently, a lot of folks think Nick Diaz won the fight somehow. How? I mean, Nick Diaz, he kept coming forward. He kept coming forward, and he kept throwing punches, but he kept missing all his punches. He got countered. He got leg kicked into oblivion. I mean, Condit landed like 80 leg kicks. I mean, the fact that Nick Diaz is a very durable fighter with fantastic cardio and an iron chin, you know, that will tell you that, you know, that's the reason that Condit never looked like he accomplished a lot. I mean, it's tough to look like a great striker against Nick Diaz, but Carlos Condit did it.
Well, it sounds like in boxing when a fighter gets too much credit for being the aggressor all night.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Diaz was definitely the aggressor. He moved forward, but I mean, Carlos Condit threw more strikes, Carlos Condit landed more strikes, Carlos Condit landed the better strikes, and Condit didn't stand in front of Nick Diaz. That's not a winning game plan. We've seen guys try to stand in front of Nick Diaz before. It does not work. I mean, people just get punched into oblivion. I mean, Diaz will land 300 punches on you if you stand in front of him. And Carlos Condit circled away. I mean, there's no need to stand in front of Nick Diaz. And Carlos Condit knew that. And, you know, you can win the fight without moving forward the entire time, throwing punches that miss. You can win the fight going backwards, countering the dude that you make miss with your better footwork.
And Nick Diaz's corner wasn't particularly helpful in helping him make adjustments to Condit's game plan?
Yeah, the MMA blog Bloody Elbow had a really great and actually kind of heartbreaking transcript of all the advice that Nick Diaz got from his corner during the round and between each round. It was just really, you know, encouraging him. You know, Nick, you're kicking his ass. He's afraid of you. He's running away. Well, no, he's landing more punches. He's throwing more punches. You're missing all of your punches. I'm really not sure, you know, what the corner was. I mean, it's not helpful advice. I mean, and his corner wasn't the only one. I mean, really, you know, Pat Miletich, Dan Henderson, Joe Lozon. I mean, just a laundry list of MMA fighters and MMA analysts also thought Nick Diaz was winning the fight. I mean, they were tweeting about it all night, and you know, this says a lot about the state of striking in mixed martial arts, frankly, when, you know, there's a fight that a guy is winning going backwards, but because he's, you know, stepping backwards as he lands all his punches, people think that that's somehow ineffective or negated. You know.
It also says a lot about the power of positive thinking and the limits, I guess.
Yes, you're doing great, Nick. No, you're not.
I guess getting punched in the face is worth more than positive thinking in mixed martial arts.
A punch in the face is worth 2 in the positive thinking book.
Okay, and whatever you thought about the result of the fight was kind of rendered moot because there was more controversy when the drug test results came out.
Yeah, no, Nick Diaz tested positive. Not for steroids, not for testosterone, nope, for marijuana. Of all the things to test positive for, Nick Diaz picked the strangest one, I guess. So even if he had won the decision, which there's really no way he could have, you know, Carlos Condit would be fighting GSP instead. You know, there's no way the fight would have been changed to a no contest. Carlos Condit would get the title shot instead. So Nick Diaz just saved the UFC from a world of public relations hurt by not winning the fight. So
Condit is going to go on to face GSP when he's healthy enough, and Nick Diaz is going to go on to face the Munchies.
All day, every day.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in to FCNYC. Tune in next week when we're going to preview the UFC in Japan card, the 4-hour card.
Yes. Now our show's not going to be 4 hours. We're just their show's 4 hours. Our show 10 minutes tops.
Okay. Thank you for watching, and go Knicks.
Go Knicks.